I said I went to the Essence Fest. I met somebody at the Essence Fest, and then I went to New York to see them from the Essence Fest. I have fun. My way, my style. It's the Archie effect. The Archie effect. My way, my style. For the first time this season, y'all, we are keeping it in the family with just you and I. We've been having a good time though, right? I think so. I've been learning a lot. I've been growing a lot. I've been facilitating a lot and speaking to some really thoughtful people, but I thought it was important to share some context on how I even got here. I've been sprinkling the seeds, of, grieving comes and goes and it can happen post-job, post-relationship. I briefly mentioned my grandmother passed some years ago. Grief can show up in many ways, but you like, what are we talking about? And so I thought that we should take some moments to get a little bit more vulnerable and to have some time to come sit on the couch and talk it out. Ooh, do y'all remember that? That was my season 3, season 2 too, right? I don't know. Theme song. But yeah, I think, I have been alone a lot over the last couple of years, and I have had this conversation. Don't mind me. We just hanging out. Okay. If I fix a mic, I fix a mic. But I had some conversation specifically with one of my best friends, and we had came up with this idea because I was talking about grieving, which was really interesting. And I was like, I think maybe it would be really important and interesting if I was able to have a theme for the coming back of it all, at least for that first part, that first iteration. And I think as we make our way through the 7 stages of grief, it's also really important. I'm sure maybe you've asked like, okay, what happens after the 7 stages? Like, what do we talk about then? I think after that, it's more of a general conversation, just like sharing in the theme, and if people will identify with one stage more than others, and then we'll have conversations as we do. But yeah, like I said, I was talking to my friend and we had this conversation about the grieving, because it felt like, I don't want to say bad, but very hard, rough things were happening one after another. And sometimes there would not be moments to really process it all because, okay, bet I got laid off from here. Now I need to go into fight or flight mode to make sure I am providing for myself. And now I'm back on LinkedIn and I'm knocking at people's doors, and literally and figuratively. Well, not like that. I don't knock on doors. People come to me, but but yeah. And so, what was I saying? Yeah. So, what was I saying? But yeah. So talking about the grief, right? And so the layoff of it all and not being able to process it in totality. Sometimes I would show up in that next space a little anxious and, agitated, right? And so I wasn't able to go through those processes. And so then being aware of that, I was like, all right, let's have some time for both of these things. All 7 of these things, and recognize it before you go and show up in another place. And take it with a grain of salt. Everybody doesn't have that luxury all the time. Neither do I. And I think it all started at the end of season 3. Season 3 was actually really fun, and I was able to see the fruits of my labor in a way on a content component. The show was cool. It was amazing. It was connecting with so many of you. Like I remember one time I went to DC. Shout out to the DC people. And I was minding my business and people knew me from that, which was a really cool thing because I do this and I hope that it reaches somebody and it connects with you and you engage with the content. But to, see people talk about how it was just a different conversation or it was fun. It was, lighthearted. They look forward to it. It was different nuance. They were able to gain a different perspective. I think that was the goal. But it was hard. because I think the circumstances that I was in and working with the team I had at the time and the team of me and one was really, it started to get a little rigid. And I don't want to speak on anybody's circumstances, but it got a little toxic for me with just like, I think what, my helping producer at the time wanted for me that I was not able to return or give in, which had nothing to do with the show. And so that became hard. And then I've also been very transparent that I have had whoa. I cry a lot. I have had I've been very transparent that I have done this show and I've been a creator and I have been a media host and I show up in spaces, but I have also had a job because the way that this environment and this industry is set up, I have not been afforded the opportunity to solely depend on content, right? And so I have several degrees and insights to the world that I need to use. And so, yeah, like at the time I was leaving this network that is not a network that you would think of, right? It's like you think of network, you think of Netflix. It was nothing like that. It was actually a nonprofit organization. And I was actually going through a lot of microaggressions and racism from another minority group. And it was just like a lot to deal with, I think, for me to deal with on a daily basis and then to try to show up authentically in myself here with y'all. And that was a lot. And so I was eventually, let's say, pushed out after trying to fix so many different things and course correct. And so I think that prompted this theme of the 7 stages of grief. What year was that? Was that 2023? Yeah, I think it was 2023. It was 2023. And so, boom, that's life. Next thing you know, summer hits because that was like in the spring. I'm outside. Okay? I am here. I am there. It came off of the heels of doing some content program. I'm at Essence Fest. We making it work. It was fun. But also, it was still, what's the word to when you are still like, you just went through something that's a little traumatic? I'm still very fragile and I'm having a time. And, but I also think that it was a really fun year. It was a really fun summer, I think, because that was the first summer that felt like the world was normal again post-pandemic in a way. We were back outside, we were traveling. We had a couple of brand deals here. I said I went to the Essence Fest. I met somebody at the Essence Fest and, then I went to New York to see them from the Essence Fest. I have fun. And so all these different things are happening while I'm also kind of going through the grieving process, but not really aware that I'm grieving. And I think that it became a little bit more apparent to me when, not that year at all, it was like top of the next year, which is like 2024. And so I had got a gig, and I did small things here and there, but I had got a gig with the Golden Globes, which some may know because I made a video when they let me go and it kind of went up. And that was also very, very interesting. And I don't think that was a calculated situation like the past one. It was just a place that I was at for a couple of months, less than 3. And the role had been, just like terminated because they didn't know where to go with that role post the award season. But I was really conflicted with my spirituality, with the thought process. And I was in the bargaining stage, the denial stage for that one more so. Now, did we talk about denial and bargaining already? I forget. It's a lot going on. Did we talk about denial bargaining? Yeah. Right. Shout out to James Bland who helped me through that one. And I was like, so why would I be let go or moved on from that situation that happened the year prior, and then it's happening yet again? Like, what was the reason? And so it's like, well, if this didn't happen, then I would be able to bring the podcast back, right? Because I pay for it. And so, these different things. And I think that was the start of like, okay, maybe you're grieving. You know what I'm saying? And I think I mentioned with Rachel on like episode 1 that my grandmother had passed, but my grandmother passed in 2022, which was also an interesting time because my grandmother had passed in 2022, top of the year, and then I was dating this person, and it was a battle, no pun intended, and like it was like the week after. That comes to an end. But anyways, I'm in 2024. I'm not in 2022 anymore. Right? Let's keep the story moving along. Something funny over there? Oh, the behind the scenes of it all. And so I'm in 2024 and I'm like, okay, maybe you're grieving certain things that maybe you didn't address prior. So let's actually go through the phase. And that taught me a lot. And so I was really grateful for that. And I was able to hold on to hope for so long, which we're about to start talking about. And not today, in the coming weeks. And yeah, I just think that like that was a lot of realization. So long story short, I feel like I've been talking for a minute about the minute angles of it all. But I wanted to, being on the opposite side of grief today, I wanted to talk about like when things shifted for me. And I think that was the time to be able to address it, to be able to go through that point and to identify, when it was dark, when I wanted to see the light and so on and so forth. And so it has been a long time coming. I had thought about the podcast coming back last year, but let me tell you what happened last year. I decided to work on a mini series. Okay. And, I had fun. Y'all didn't show up, let me know every day. But it's fine. It's fine. But it's like you go through these different creative releases to ultimately, build a, like a 360, as a creator, as a visionary, and as somebody who is just out here thriving and living and doing the thing. And so hopefully my experience can help you, even myself, get to a more fuller destination. Hey friend, I hope you're enjoying this episode, but I want you to discover a workplace where connection and creativity thrive. Soho Works is a global community for entrepreneurs, creators, and innovators who value collaboration as much as productivity. With beautifully designed spaces, intentional amenities, and access to an inspiring network of like-minded individuals. Soho Works is your home for ideas and growth, created for Soho House members and those who share our vision. This is where work meets community. Join us and elevate the way you work. Learn more at sohohouse.com. Before I move on, As Told by Archie is still streaming everywhere. Go watch it. It is still a project that you can watch, stream, invest in. And those are some real life stories. Okay. And I have a lot of stories. And, it's just a blimp out of your day. Watch it. It might come back. You never know. And so basically after the Globes, I started to just really look at things a little different. I was very blessed to have contract work, and to also, exist in this creator capacity and have brands invest in me to still be able to make it happen. And I think that's also so interesting. And I credit that a lot to my mom and my parents, because I've been privy to what the streets are saying about me here and there. And some of it's true and a lot of it is not, about just like making it happen and like I'm just always okay. But like, it is so rough out here. I be going through it every day. Okay? Like, I have seen what negative $2 looks like in my account recently. Okay? So I'm getting hot. Where is Laurel? But today specifically, I wanted to hold a little space for the upward turn when it comes to grief, about finding perspective, about, you go through anger, you go through shock, you go through denial, you go through these things, but in that kind of that middle area, you're like, no, wait a minute. Some of the things that I'm going through, some of the things in my head, they're kind of a lie. They're not real. And if they are real, let me address it, hold space for it, because I know trouble doesn't last always. And there is going to be that hope, and I'm going to accept the things. And so this is like that middle point to where you're like, no, I'm actually okay. I'm not okay today, but I'm going to be okay. And I think that that's very important. And so after all these things, and after I've acknowledged the 7 stages, and I'm simultaneously working on this very show that we're seeing a year ago, and having I'm conceptualizing, certain different narratives and guests and themes, I'm having fun. Now, one thing about me, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have a blast. My parents would love for me to sit down, but I'm going to have fun. And you know what happened? You know what happened a little after this stage, a little after the upward turn, and I was able to sit back and realize some things? I fell deeply in like. Oh, do you know what deeply in like means? No? Well, deeply in like is, have you ever been in love? Clap if you ever been in love. I wasn't there. I was deeply in like. And let me tell you something. I really thought that I had made a match on Hinge. I don't know if apps work for you, but I don't have much hope with that anymore. But at this point, it was going great. I'm the kind of person who was like, if you find somebody, I kind of get enveloped in it really fast. And all of a sudden, I'm planning our first vacation. And guess what happened? 3 weeks after dating, we went to Cabo. Yeah, and I had a great time. And it was a great time up until it wasn't. And I think that you need to go through those things and learn from those things. And it lasted for about 4 months. And guess where I found myself? Back in the 7 stages of grief. I was angry. I was shocked. I was in denial. I was testing. I was on the upward turn. I had hope, and I was accepting of the demise of it all. And what's also so interesting, like when I talk about dating, it's never something that I did or they did. It's like, this just doesn't work, which I think is interesting, but so I digress. But you know what I've been asking people this season? On a scale of 0 to 10, how happy are they today? I want to ask myself that question. And on a scale of 0 or 1 to 10 or whatever, I am at a solid 8. I'm at a solid 8. Maybe 8.5. Get me to the bottom of this glass, it might be a 9. But I will say, I am genuinely happy. There are a lot of different things that I don't really enjoy, and a lot of things that I can see on the news or whatever, but like, that has nothing to do with me, and I can't take it in. But like, who I am today with myself, I'm happy about it, and I'm happy that we're doing this, and we're getting to talk. But in the grieving process, I think for me, I knew that I was at the climax of grief when I started to throw myself into another situation and not directly addressing what the issue was, which I think is a little bit of deflecting. We've all deflected, some people deflect questions on my show. But, I think it's really interesting when you hold space for that, to acknowledge that, and then to also like course correct. Because life is literally what you make it. We're on this planet for a moment in time, and you can evolve to your heart's desires. And once you evolve and once you make these mistakes and once you experience these people and friendships come and go and you're able to hold on to that, that's also something that I've grieved, that I've not really said this entire season. I don't have friends that I once did when season 3 ended. Ain't no womp womp womp. Is clap if God eliminated noise. But even at the climax of those things and a lot of like sitting with myself, I found myself drinking a lot of wine in the peak of grieving things. And so I started to run a lot ahead of my 30th birthday and lost a lot of weight that I now have back. But, I was doing a lot of practices that also kind of helped me gain clarity, and it's something I've been doing very much so consistent this year. I've never been like a journaling person. I never really cared to like journal. And I don't know if you have this problem, but I don't enjoy writing for long periods of time because I think that I have grown up like this. And so when I do this for longer than like a minute, my hand starts to cramp. But I started to journal. And more specifically this year, I write letters to God and reflection to start my day. But I think everybody talks about journaling and the whole therapy experience. Yes, I've been in therapy for years. I'm not in therapy currently right now because when you go through things and when you're experiencing different transitions and losses and grievings and all these different things, grievances, you're like, who's paying for this? So at one point, like the therapy had to stop because who's paying for this? So I need to call my therapist back up now that I do work. And but the practices that I was doing to gain clarity was a lot of journaling and it was a lot of nature, which has been really grounding for me. I do have, I'm very fortunate to live in California and I'm a big water person. And so sitting at the beach and really like being with myself, even taking the journal out there, hiking a lot, and really just like I started to run outside in a controlled environment. So like a controlled running around a lake. I cannot run around neighborhoods. I don't know how people run around neighborhoods. It bothers me. Personally, for myself. I love that y'all do it. I can't run in neighborhoods because I feel congested. But, I am claustrophobic mostly. And so there was a lot of that and a lot of internal conversations that I was having about like who I want to be. What does this mean that I'm feeling this way? And how can I get on the other end of that? And a lot of, talking to my sister. I'm very blessed that like my sister has become like one of my best friends. And I think that those individual practices and a lot of just sitting alone, and I'm at home a lot by myself, and especially in this era, not so much right now, it's the summertime, baby, and just like blasting music with myself, having a ball. I have a karaoke machine in my house that I love to whip out, and it is a party of one. And so whatever that is that feels good for you, I think that you should pour into that and lean into that as you make your way to clarity on your journey from grieving to accepting it and living a full life. But when I sit back and I think about the things that I've been through, especially, so I talk about this with a lot of different people, the Saturn return. I talk about it because it's really interesting to hear people who are not so much astrology girlies and guilies, and then the ones that, are, right? It's like, it's different. Me, on the other hand, I don't know too much about astrology. I'm never the astrology leader, but I think it all makes sense, and I take it into consideration, where my root of the toot is faith, right? But I think it makes sense. It is all uniquely designed, as we are, by the Creator. And so when I think about these different things, and I was reading what a Saturn return is, I said, well, damn. I'm here. So, this is when life was like, it was like, oh, Carisha, please, and so I was being dragged left and right. And I feel like now being on the other end of that Saturn return, there's an energy of ease around me, and just able to like be slow to respond and to ask myself questions before I throw shame on top of it, which I think is really important in the process. And that's how that process has shifted my outlook now, which I think, because I think the Saturn return comes back around in a couple of years. Not a couple of years, give me some time. But like, it does come back around if you're able to live a long life. You know, it's like don't get me to talking. But on today, as for me in my household, we are good today. And I'm able to like sit back, look at those things, and I'm proud of the way I maneuvered it, which I think is really important. And then to also have these conversations this season with people who have also lived, like they have lived, you know, like they have lived lives. And to also gain knowledge from some older than me, younger than me, of like how they show up in those processes, and to have my own experience is like, you know, like that just makes me so excited about life, because at the end of the day got to end, but we are all humans on this planet experiencing similar things, but we process it differently and we have different responses. And I think that is so fucking dope. And so to wrap this up, because I mean, we've been chatting, right? We have been chatting. Actually, hold on. Oof. Because we are talking, and I'm not about to show this brand because pay me, but you know, as I wrap this up, I just need to, yes, Jesus, let my cup overfloweth. I just want to say that I find great encouragement in, I think, community that we've cultivated, and I am just like really honored to just like be in a space and to have a microphone, but to be like thoughtful and insightful with it, because there are a lot of places and that don't have that intention. And so to be able to hold on to that, and to be able to have experienced things and provide people the space to share their experience so that we can grow and learn together through the chaos, I think is like dope. But as far as just moving through life and how I'm motivating myself today, I think it's just community. I think it's community, and I think it's how I speak to myself now, because it has not always been the most uplifting and the most positive. And yeah, we're thugging it out for sure. And I'm very blessed to have like parents to be able to communicate with, and have friends who, you know, believe in like what I'm doing and the creative vision and all these different things. Like I have somewhere to go, even if it gets rocky again, you know what I mean? And I think that is so valuable, because people don't. And then I also, am I just talking now? Because I really feel like, I don't know. I mean, definitely the upward turn, but I was telling my dad the other day, on the wrap up here, like I was telling my dad the other day, like, you know, I still work, I still work a job, right? I love my job now, like, which is also very, very refreshing. I haven't experienced that since I was doing some producing stuff with, whatever, doesn't matter, but I enjoy my job. But I was telling him, I was like, I got to get back to my podcast, because I've, you know, shout out to the Kardashians and my cult, right? But I got to get back to my bread and butter, just because like I feel the most at home and like so passionate about like what I'm doing, because, you know, it's like when your parents come from a different generation, you're like, you got a good job. Like, what you doing? And I'm like, no, but like I love life so much in that moment. And I had told him that maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but then I had talked to him last night, and I had told him, I was like, yeah, I'm filming a pod in the morning, you know, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, I love that for you, because you have communicated to me that, you know, that brings you light, and you are able to like hold space for other people to share conversations and then also get your viewpoint out. That's how I'm proud of you. So anyways, season 4, we're at the door. But yeah, we're learning, we're growing. However you're grieving, I hope that you are taking something away from this, because I've been grieving for a very long time. And I'm not grieving today, and that's what matters. All right, I love you. Bye.